First, I want to say thank you for having me here. I'm very grateful to talk to you about the role of social media in the Arab world. As you can see in the conversation prism, which is basically a breakdown of all social media and by use. Like everywhere else in the world, Arabs are using social media to communicate with each other, to get noticed, and to share ideas. We use social media to discover new songs, order food, and yes, topple governments. The penetration of social networking and Web 2.0 technologies is soaring in the Arab region. Demographically, the Arab region is a youthful one, where youth between the ages of 15 and 29 make up 1/3 of the population. With exceptional growth of online social networking, particularly amongst this demographic, who will in the next few years become active citizens, potential entrepreneurs, and a part of the government and private workforce. It is argued that social network tools have the potential to enhance citizen engagement in the region, promote social inclusion, and create opportunities for employment, entrepreneurship, and development. So, as you can see, there's a sheer opportunity for growth in the less saturated, darker areas. For example, Egypt and Tunisia, what started all of this conversation, is dark now. But what does it look, with the small, young demographic that is in that region, it's only going to grow brighter and brighter in the coming years. So let's talk about Facebook in the MENA region penetration. The Dubai School of Government, an institution that works in cooperation with the Harvard Kennedy School, published its Arab social media report. In the first quarterly series that will highlight and analyze usage trends of online social networking across the Arab region. The Dubai School of Government recently published the second Arab social media report, and if you haven't seen it, I urge you to do so. It has provided interesting evidence that a critical mass of young and active social media users are nudging the use of social media from social into political across the whole region. The issue titled Facebook Usage, Factors and Analysis puts a strong emphasis on detailed statistical data related to Facebook use in the region. The number of Facebook users in all 22 Arab countries, in addition to Iran and Israel, was collected periodically between April 22nd and December 21st in 2010 in the following age brackets: youth, 15 to 29, adults, 30 and above, as well as by gender, and correlated with several factors, including digital access, gender gaps, youth population, and internet freedom. The penetration rates are calculated by dividing the number of Facebook users in that country over the entire population. Countries highlighted in green are considered to be top performers that can be compared with the top 20 countries on Facebook. Now that's in percentage-wise and not in terms of actual user numbers. While countries highlighted in yellow are emerging countries, and finally countries in red are considered developing users. So new users as percentages of populations and new users in numbers. As you can see, go back to that slide. The UAE is an obvious leader in growth in compared to other countries. So it's interesting how countries with high penetration rates don't necessarily mean high numbers on Facebook, right? Interesting to note, however, that from the top 10 countries, only Jordan and the UAE have a population under 10 million. My hunch is that could be due to the higher awareness of people towards social networks and or the strong ICT support in that country. And for example, Dubai has a whole new media city that is funded by the government. So we're going to talk about Facebook and its role in the GCC. The UAE is a clear leader in terms of penetration in the Arab world, with Qatar and Bahrain following. Even though Saudi Arabia has a lower penetration rate compared to other GCC states, the reality is the number of users from Saudi Arabia is actually higher than all the GCC states put together. So let's talk about Facebook and gender. The gender breakdown of Facebook users shows a slight increase in the percentage of female users, rising from 32% at the end of 2010 to 33.5% in the first quarter of 2011. This is still significantly lower than the global trend, where it constitutes 61% of Facebook users. Now we're going to focus on Facebook and age. The UAE shows the most balance between youth and adults on Facebook, followed closely by Qatar and Kuwait. And again, we can see how the majority of youth dominance is explosive in these regions. What's interesting to see is that UAE and Qatar have almost a 50-50 penetration or usage between people, let's say, over 30 and people and youth. It just seems they're more connected. And that speaks to how those specific countries are always on top of the trends, always into technology, are always the innovators, and kind of almost lead the region. And that which is, as we can see, is very clear and represents what is going on right now. More importantly now, let's talk about Twitter. The region boasts over 40 million Facebook users and over 2 million active Twitterers who tweet in excess of 4 billion tweets a month. So here are some Twitter facts. The Arab world continues to be one of the fastest growing regions for those sites. Per capita, more members are joining these sites in the Arab world than in the United States, with the GCC countries and the UAE taking the lead. 60% of tweets this year came from Kuwait, from Qatar, from UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Which is interesting because only one of these ousted its government. And usage as an indicator for unrest isn't correlated here. Although it points to something else in my mind and shows the degree of which communities are perhaps using Twitter to communicate socially. Twitter perhaps can be replacing chats in the region. How is this for an indicator of growth? And what's to come? It took 3 years, 2 months, and 1 day for the first tweet to the billionth. Now, it takes about a week. So which came first, the revolution or Facebook? Well, in 2010, in the first 3 months of 2011, Facebook grew compared to 2010, in the first 3 months of 2011, Facebook grew in the Arab region at an even faster rate, growing 30% in the first 3 months as compared to 18% over the same period in 2011 and 2010. Countries where major civil movements have occurred have shown exceptional growth during this time, and especially after those civil movements. The exception, Libya. User membership data took a dramatic nosedive, possibly due to the extreme civil tension, mass exodus of expats prior to last month's dramatic turn of events, and the general information crackdown by the Libyan government in an effort to control the revolt. Egypt still constitutes about a quarter of total Facebook users in the Arab region, and has added more users in the first quarter of 2011 than any other Arab country, at a close to 2 million new Facebook users between January 5th and April 5th. Youth continue to drive the growth of Facebook in the region, making up 70% of Facebook users. But the numbers of users who are over 30 has risen, possibly due to more adults signing on to Facebook, especially in the wake of the civil movements in that region. Now we talk about language. English is the language of choice for most users in 7 Arabic countries. French is the language of choice in 5, and Arabic is the language of choice in 3. The remaining countries on Facebook are on Facebook's populations were evenly split between Arabic and English. The ability to communicate in a preferred language was critical to the use of Facebook during the uprisings, and could explain why Twitter was not popular in many of the countries at the time, as it didn't have Arabic interface. And here's a little visual to kind of get an idea of the difference. It's Egypt and Tunisia. You have like French, English, and Arabic, and I think it's very clear the dominant language in those regions. This is a very important slide for me. I wanted to talk about a little bit. It's very interesting to see, Lebanon versus Algeria, where the dominant language in Algeria is French, and the dominant language in Lebanon is English. But then we look at, Yemen, Palestine, Saudi Arabia, where the dominant languages are Arabic. And that really speaks to the culture. That really speaks to what people are comfortable with. And it also gets a good indication of what the youth are actually talking about and how we're to best communicate and reach them. And hopefully, my hope is that by next year, we'll be doing the same presentation and looking at the same charts. And that whole chart is going to be pure blue. And everybody will be taking Arabic as the first language of social networking in our region. And I think we are not doing that yet is because we have yet to understand fully the potential of social networking. We're still afraid of it. Once we commit to that, I think it's going to revolutionize, especially the Arab region and hopefully the world from a different point of view. And finally, I want to say that in a part of the world where governments enjoy absolute and ultimate control of information source and flow, there's no doubt that a neutral social media platform would quickly turn into a soapbox for the masses. What's interesting is this shows no sign of abating and seems to be almost a paradigm shift in how the platform is used in the region. What will be interesting to see, as well as how governments will handle this effort to maintain their regime and their order. Will the governments that were savvy enough to go with the information flow, those that tried to take advantage of the growth of social media, those that were visionary enough to put guidelines and policies in place when they sensed a shift in the sands, will those governments too ultimately resort to the same limiting techniques we have seen of late? Blocking access to social media websites or the internet and mobile networking altogether? Will they choke the new sources of information flows in their societies? It'll be interesting to see where it goes in the future, and whether or not social media will continue to play a critical role in mobilization, empowerment, shaping opinions, and influencing change. Like the rest of the world, I can firmly say I do not believe the generation of Arabs that have embraced the technology and platforms we consider responsible for the Arab Spring will have it any other way. Social media is going to continue to play a large role in all aspects in the life of the region. And that role will only grow. To me, this isn't really surprising, and it's a bit of a non-issue. People have been using new technology to air their grievances for a very, very long time. Pen and parchment, printing press, radio, television, or computers. As my buddy Malcolm Gladwell says, people with a grievance will always find ways to communicate with each other. So I end with this. How they choose to do it is less interesting in the end than the way they were driven to do it in the first place, and why they were driven to do it in the first place. And I think we should take that into consideration. Facebook, Twitter are merely tools. And they did not start anything. They just facilitated a way of something that has been growing for over a couple, for the past 30 years, if we look at Egypt, and in general in the region. And thank you again for having me, and I look forward to your questions.